Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Football Heritage TV. Wherever you are in the world, today we're joined by George from Do-Rag Diaries, who's making his debut on the Morning Chats with Savva. George, good morning. What a lovely time to be a Spurs fan. How are you, my man?
As you said there, man, what a lovely time to be a Spurs fan. They always make it interesting. And right now they're trying to reel you all the way back in. But I don't know if I'm there yet. But no, good to be here. Good to make my debut. And thank you, man.
Don't worry. After an hour and a half of listening to me, you're going to be fully on board with all the movements and hating Tottenham the way I do at times. Just before we start, guys and girls, smash the like button. Show some love to any guest that comes onto my show. George has given up an hour and a half of his morning. Please, I have pinned his channel. So let's, as always, let's help all the Spurs creators grow. Doesn't matter if we agree with each other 100%. We're all out here doing a job for everybody to watch. Just before we start, Fabrizio Romano, a few announcements this morning in the world of football. Xavi Simons has become a permanent player for Leipzig on an 80 million euro package. The big one, of course, is John Duran has signed for Al Nassr, which I'm really disappointed about. A player of that potential going out there this early in his career. I'll talk to George about that a bit later. And also the news that you lot care about, that George is going to care about, that I care about. And Romano has said in the last 42 minutes that the race for Mathys Tel is starting to heat up, with the Premier League clubs pushing. Tottenham open to invest on a permanent transfer, as their director was in attendance in Munich last night. Chelsea are still there. Man United are still there. Let's start here, George. We'll get into the transfer window as a whole after this, but Mathys Tel, exciting player, but I've put in the bio of this show, we're fast becoming the most expensive creche in world football, a £1 billion creche. Is he what we need? What do you make of it if we got this over the line? Does he fix any of the gaps? No experience? What do you make of this whole situation?
It's a bit of a tough one, because when you watch him, it's very exciting. And, you want to get happy about it because he plays for Bayern Munich. He's doing some good things over there. To be fair, I remember us being linked with him when we sold Kane over there. It was like Mathys Tel might become this way to replace him as a striker and so on. And he's always been a hot prospect around there. But it points to like what you said there, man. We're like we're running a nursery around here at this moment. I got really excited when you saw the other links to like a Johan Wissa, because that's an experienced player in the Premier League, bagging goals this season and like constantly. Whereas Mathys Tel, as much as I think like he can come in and have an instant impact because he plays off the left, and he would replace Sonny instantly for me. As much as Sonny's good in that final third and he can do, he's going to give us a goal and assist every now and then, the all-round quality and the performance across 90 minutes just isn't there anymore. So Mathys Tel could come in and take his role and give us a bit more, that energy we need in the wings, because we haven't got a 1v1 dribbler, someone that's going to run at their man, take them on, and that's one of his specialties. So he fills a hole in our team for role profile wise. His profile of how he plays is perfect for what we need. But it goes to what you say there, man. Like, he's not proven necessarily at the highest level. As much as he's had a good time at Bayern Munich, it's not like he plays every game. He's got like 7 or 8 appearances in the league this season. So clearly he's still not fully trusted in some sense to play at a high level. And I think Spurs, does he fill the void that we need profile-wise, but experience and, someone to lead us in this moment where we're 15th in the table and you need an experienced head on the pitch to lift you up? I don't think he's that guy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I feel like, for me, I watch Mathys Tel and go, okay, all right, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're exciting. I just wonder, coming into a team that is 15th, coming into a team that is struggling for wins, that doesn't have any experience, and Ange just talked about leadership, and he's kind of flip-flopped a bit this year, George. The first message was, no, hang on, I don't want to buy leadership, I want to develop it. And then I think as he's gone on in the season, he's kind of gone to, hang on, we need some leaders here. My question to you is, I want to touch upon something you just said, not my belief. You said he will take Son's position. Do you think that Ange will go, hang on, my captain, I'm now going to bench him and Tel's going to be that guy? I mean, I'm not disagreeing that should happen, but do you think he will do that?
Well, I think the key thing about this still, and that's one thing that Fabrizio and all these other people have said, is that he wants guaranteed minutes. So if we do sign him, Spurs are going to have to guarantee him, similar to what they've done with Archie Gray. They will have to guarantee him game time. And I mean, whether he chooses Tottenham over the likes of Manchester United or Chelsea is probably going to be due to the game time. Because if we're being honest, money-wise, we're not competing with what either of those teams are going to offer for wage structure. So I feel like it's a difficult one. I think Ange has started to realize Sonny can't play as many games as he has been. So I'm not going to jump in and say that he's going to be dropped for every game. But because we play so many games at this moment, it probably will be a case of he comes in instantly and Sonny's going to have more of an impact off the bench. But maybe in those bigger games, you know, like Liverpool next week, you can't see Sonny getting benched for Mathys Tel because you need an experienced head in a cup semi-final.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I feel in two ways about this. Like, I've got no problem with Spurs going and signing a Mathys Tel. I do wonder though, what difference will it make to the overall setup of how we play? And what I mean by that is we'll have signed a player. If he comes in, we would have signed Kinski at the back in goal, Mathys Tel out there on the left. And I just wonder, a lot of talk about the tactics, George. You know me, I'm not a fan of this manager at all. I think his tactics are terrible. I just wonder whether or not this is more a panic rather than it is, hang on, what do we actually need to shore ourselves up? And what I mean by that is we're 15th. And I don't know your opinion on whether you think we can get relegated. We'll have that chat in a minute. But we are in a relegation battle from the point of view that we are in relegation form for the last 15, 20 games. My worry is this signing again going to do anything to make us more compact, more tight? Or are we literally banking on this to be the difference maker up front to grab a goal or two and don't worry about everything else this side of the pitch?
Yeah, I think it's... Do you know what? For me, that's one thing where I've been a bit like... As much as I don't like us, and I think defensively our structure's a mess. I think the structure's a mess, and the players we have in there don't really help that structure. And I did think that ideally we all wanted around 3 players this window. Typical Spurs way, they promise you 4 at the start, and then at the end they're going to give you 2 and say, "Oh, well, we tried." And that's sort of how it's sort of going at the moment. I do believe we need that defensive player, but I'm not going to lie. I think the attack has been one of the big issues because we can break teams down. We can create chances. And a lot of the times we're getting the ball into good areas. But when you have, you know, Brennan Johnson or Timo Werner or some, like the players we have up front, we're just constantly breaking down our own attacks. I think what Spurs are probably banking on is the fact that, you know, we got Romero, you got Van de Ven coming back. Why are they going to sign a third centre back? Which is very stupid because we should have had a third centre back in the summer. Ben Davies isn't good enough to be playing. As much as Ben Davies has been better than, you know, most of the centre backs this season, he shouldn't be our third choice option. Like that he's been here for 10 years.
Let's be fair, he's a left back that plays well on the left side of a 3, but he's not a centre back in a 2. He's just not, is he?
He's just not. And that's the thing is he's never been a good centre back or never been a great left back either. He's just filled in for Spurs across 11 years and somehow he's built his career out of that. But that's fine. I just think, like you've highlighted too, with the way that we play, I do have questions down. I thought a left back was probably the most key role to where we needed to sign because when I've been seeing Archie Gray at left back recently, he's been getting killed. His positioning's all over the place. He's a young player and he's playing out like he's a right-footed player as well, so which makes it even harder because you're limiting the angles that you can pass at when you're playing at left back. So yeah, it's a tough one. I do think we needed the left forward or left winger position signed, but I do think there is a sense of this is a club signing for the future. And that's the problem, is they keep trying to do club signing for the future to try to protect the fact that next season we might be good. But that's not what I want. I want this season to be good.
Right.
Like,
do you know what?
It's a bit of a mess in that sense.
Bang on. This is something I was going to move on to a bit later, but the fact that you've brought it up now, we'll go into it. When you just sign young players, and if you look, I'm looking at the last 7 or 8 signings, other than Dominic Solanke, I don't feel like any of them would be legally allowed to drink in America. Like we're at that age, right? Like we can't go on pre-season to America because none of them are going to be allowed in anywhere. it does scream that, George, doesn't it? It does almost scream. And the word back or backing is really subjective in football, but it doesn't scream that we're backing the manager. It's almost like, well, look, if we bring in a Mathys Tel, a Yang, a Bergvall, a Gray, an Odeber, but it doesn't really matter because this isn't specifically for Ange. This is for Tottenham, and we can develop them moving forward over the next 3-4 years. And I guess that's where the heart over the head with Tottenham fans is, do I look at this and go, yeah, really good signing because I think Mathys Tel could be a top player for 5 years? Or do I look at this and go, well, hang on, what's happening with the manager right now? Is this what this manager needs to get us out of a funk? And that's where I think we're just all over the place, mate.
No, we are. No, you're right. You're right. We're 100% all over the place. And that's one thing I feel like the club keeps getting wrong. And they contradict themselves. Like I said, I think Ange contradicted himself because just before the start of this window, what he said was that the club has changed the direction from the summer, and that, like you pointed to, they want to sign more experienced players so they can lead this squad. And in these moments where it's getting tough, they need someone who's a bit more experienced. He admitted that. But then this whole window, we've only targeted young players. That there hasn't been, and to be fair, it doesn't look like we've targeted anyone. It looks like we're just taking advantage of market opportunities because Mathys Tel has been talking to Chelsea for the past 30 days. And, now he said he actually wants to leave Bayern, but I need guaranteed game time. It's like, oh, Spurs want to throw their hat in there. Same with Johan Wissa. It's like Nottingham Forest went around and inquired for Cunha, inquired for Mbemo, inquired for Wissa, and then Spurs probably heard about it and was like, oh, let me inquire for that. It's just looking around and trying to pick up market opportunities. And that's where the mess is because going into the window, there never is a plan in January. There never is a clear plan. So we end up in a position like this where probably most Spurs fans wouldn't be, if you said at the start of the window, we're going to end up with Kinski and Mathys Tel, they wouldn't be happy. But at the end of the window, a lot of us get to the point of desperation. So we're starved. When a homeless man, you offer him a sandwich for dinner, he's not going to be mad. But if you're at home and someone's saying that, you're going to be like, nah, mate. So at this point, a lot of people are just going to lap it up and they're going to be happy because we've been starved. You just want to see a signing. You want to see some improvement. But it's not someone that's going to, I'd say, get us out of this position of 15th and make us a so much better team. Like, it's not that.
Well, Matt Law has just tweeted this. And listen, I love this because I think these people all know something, but I don't know how much they know, right? So this is the Chelsea word, right? We've been here before as Spurs fans. Whenever we're involved and Chelsea are involved, it straight away makes me go from hang on to nah, we're not doing it. Matt Law said this: I'm told that Chelsea are not currently put off by reports of Tel supposedly favouring alternative moves or being concerned about playing time. That hadn't been directly communicated to Chelsea by yesterday evening. Now, that was in direct links to everyone saying that Spurs were going to sign him. This is the worry, though, George, whether it's Mathys Tel or somebody else. When Man U and Chelsea are involved, if they really want him, that we will only get him if they really don't want him because they will blow us out the water on fee and if not salary. And this is like, it's like Pedro Neto. It's like Pedro Neto. Everyone was like, oh my God, we're going to sign Neto. Hang on. Chelsea went, yeah, see you later, Spurs. We're coming in. We're going to give him whatever, 200 grand a week. We're going to pay this. That's the worry, isn't it? That we see Chelsea and United linked with him as well.
No, 100%. That's the thing. You can see all these other teams bigger, and to be honest, Chelsea and Man United at this moment in time are a bigger platform for him to perform on. Because let's have it right, he's looking for a move that could potentially. I don't think he's looking at Spurs as I want to go to Spurs. That's the club that's going to make. No, he's looking for the move that's going to blow him up for his career and push him on to the next bigger move because. Essentially, he's at Bayern Munich. He's at the pinnacle of German football. He's looking to go back to a big club like that eventually, but he's got to go somewhere to build and bide his time at the moment. So I think at the moment, like you said there, we won't attract him over those clubs. But the one thing is, I will say, Man United are only looking at a loan. That's where we will get a bit of an advantage because they're not actually looking at a permanent signing. They can guarantee minutes though. So then and I'm not being funny. They're in pretty much the same competition as us. He's going to be able to play Europa League, so he can get a lot of football there. And Chelsea, they're competing for Champions League right now, even though they're not in that position and they're not in some of the other competitions. I think it's like you said there, they can really offer blast out of the water with wages. And every time we've been involved with a Chelsea deal, it always goes Chelsea's way. So I wouldn't have much confidence trying to take any players away from Chelsea, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to talk about a name that you just mentioned there, and I don't think it's doable in this window, but a player like Vissa or Mbeumo, right? Let's just have a look at those two, because whatever anyone says, and no matter how much I say Spurs aren't attractive right now, Tottenham Hotspur are a bigger football club than Brentford. Now, listen, people will go, oh, well, we're below them. Yeah, we are below them, but, you know, in a small snapshot of time, we're below them. We are a bigger club. We're bigger than Fulham. We're bigger than Bournemouth. We're bigger than all of these teams, right? Wouldn't it be great to wake up and see Tottenham Hotspur in 65, 70 million raid for Mbeumo? You know, a player that's ready-made, oven-cooked, been there, seen it, done it, multiple years in the Premier League, penalty taker, scores goals, beats his man. That is the sort of signing, no offense to Tel, and Tel could be great in years, but that's the sort of signing, George, where I think as Spurs fans, we all go, isn't that why we built the stadium? Like, that's it. Why can't we get that sort of a signing? Or are we just not going for that? What do you think it is, in your opinion?
We're just not going for it. I think that's one thing many of us fans have got. Like, we, you know, for the first few years, and I've probably been that person too, for the first few years after the stadium, I used to give Levy some leeway. I used to be like, no, we've just had a year or two, like, let it build. After a couple of years, we're going to start doing the big things. We're now 6 or 7 years down the line, and we haven't seen that change. We've not seen Spurs putting in the big. Yeah, we signed Richarlison for 60 million, but that wasn't a big signing. Like, they fleeced us. Same way as Bournemouth, 65 million. Because he was English, they fleeced us. We haven't gone out there and actually signed a player worth of that value, spending that top money. And like you said there, Mbeumo would be exactly that. He's a player that's firing in the Premier League right now. Most teams want him. And like I said, there's no reason why Spurs won't attract these players. Mbeumo and Vissa are probably on pennies at Brentford. I saw Vissa, I checked, he was on like 25k a week. Spurs can offer triple times that. I mean, like, wages talk. Money talks, and in football, you just need to go to these players, rattle them. It's similar to what Arsenal are doing with Ollie Watkins right now. It was a very smart way to go before the Champions League game. Oh, mate, we want you, you know. Oh, yeah, and we're willing to pay you probably double what Villa are paying you. Like, these are things what you do to players to get in their heads, especially in the last few days of the window. The one thing I do think, probably like what you pointed to there, Vissa and Mbeumo in these last few days of the window, I'm not sure if Brentford would be willing to let go, because they're not going to be sure of signing players to replace them. And those two players have literally carried them to the majority of their points this season.
Well, I'm just looking on Capology, which is where I look for all the player salaries. Give or take, it's pretty accurate. Yeah. Do you know how much Johan Vissa's on at Brentford?
I saw he was like 25, 30k or something. Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And Mbeumo's on 45. So between them, these two are taking home the same as Archie Gray. These two players are taking home the same as Archie Gray.
Criminal that Archie Gray's on 70, 80k. He's on more than like Van der Ven and so on. That's crazy.
It's mad, isn't it? Well, listen, he better develop into this world-class player everyone's talking about. But look, Archie Gray aside, look, for me, you're right. Like with the Ollie Watkins situation, I don't believe Ollie Watkins is going anywhere now. But what they have done is they've turned the head for the summer. What they have done is now it's firmly implanted into what, because I do think people got to understand this, or not you, but you know, Ollie Watkins, that wouldn't have been out the blue for Ollie Watkins that a bid came in from Arsenal. His agent would have known about this. Ollie Watkins and his agent would have known that Arsenal were interested and given the green light of, hey, if we bid, is there interest to come? Yeah. And he would have said, yeah. Now, even if they don't get in this window, which they're not going to, unless Villa are mental because they've just sold Duran. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. They've turned his head for the summer. So when it comes to the summer, he's 6 months further into his contract and they go, right, whack down 80 million at the beginning of the summer. We'll have Ollie Watkins. It works. But for me, the problem with our stance is we keep talking about, like people going, oh, I like Tel, I like Gray, I like Bergvall, I like Odegaard. The problem is we're liking them all at this stage in their career. We don't know that they're going to, you know, like me and Lubo, who talk on this show all the time, love Lubo to death. He's like, he's going to be the best midfielder in the league in 2 years. He's going to be the best. I'm like, whoa. We don't know that. And young players go through peaks and troughs. You look at Kobe Mainu. Kobe Mainu at one point, everyone was going, God, this boy is sensational. This year, it's been a bit of a, oh, he's not as good. He's still a kid. He's still finding his feet. And that's my worry about these youngsters coming in, that we automatically assume they're all going to grow together, George. And then by the time they're 23, we go, oh, they're world class. That's my worry, mate.
No, 100%. You're right with that, and you don't get no guarantees with young players. I mean, when we signed Ryan Sessegnon, he was like, "Yeah, great player, championship young player of the year." He sort of had a similar, reputation to what Archie Gray did, and he was balling out at the point. And then he comes to Spurs and just had injury issues. Now, I don't wish injury on anyone, but as these are young players and their bodies are growing, they get into things like these. There's so many different variables that can infect them on how their development does go. Just similar to Spurs have so many managers. Like there's no guarantee that Ange's going to be here after the end of the season. So a new manager might come in, might not fancy one of the young players. He might not like any of the young players.
Sure.
So this is where an issue could arise too. So there's no guarantees to young players, and that's my thing. I like signing young players and signing potential. I've always been someone who's a big fan of trying to get potential, but you need to couple that with leaders and experience. And that's what we're doing it completely wrong at the moment, because we've just gone all the way left, like all the way left.
Hang on, Jules, let's be brutally honest as well. When we're talking about managers, but like if we look at Graham Bergvall, for example, saying a new manager might come in and not rate them, not want them in their style. Let's be fair. Ange Postecoglou is only playing them because of injuries.
Yeah,
these boys weren't starting games for Tottenham Hotspur before everyone got injured. Archie Gray can't get a game in centre mid, even when we've had to wheel out Papa Sarr, who's 50-50 fit. Right, like he can't get a game there, and we're going, well, what about when they're all fit? Does Gray play? Where does he play? So I just think that surely we would turn around and go, right, we've got Yang, Odeber, Moore, Lancashire, Gray, Bergvall, Udogie, Kinski. Surely now you've got your 8 youngsters in that squad. Yeah. Surely the next 3 or 4 you go, right, I want some 24, 25, 26-year-olds that come in and calm the whole situation down. And that for me is why, again, I'm not against Tel. I can't get excited by it because I just feel like, who's he learning off? Where's the calm?
And it's also confusing as well for, I guess, players, because we keep signing loads of young wings, but we've now got Yang Min-hyuk, you've got Mikey Moore, you've got Odeber, and then you could potentially have a Mathys Tel, and you have a Brennan Johnson, and I mean, we signed Brennan Johnson for 50 million. What is he here for then? Because to be honest, he's not better than most of these players. He'll score a goal every now and then, but with the way that we play, he's not better than much of these. So unless we're looking to get rid of him, because he's not an experienced head that's going to lead the young boys, we're just packing it out with loads of young players in the same position. You're supposed to have 1 or 2 understudies to an experienced head, and we don't have the experienced head. We've just got loads of understudies.
Isn't it telling, though, no pun intended, isn't it telling that every window we don't seem to want to bolster that midfield? Like, we never seem to want to add, since he's been at the club, and someone might tell me differently. I'm just trying to think, make sure I'm not saying so stupid. Have we added one experienced central midfielder from the moment this man's joined the football club?
No, and that's one of the biggest issues when I highlight. And to be honest, this is where I go back and I will say that Ange hasn't been backed, because in the summer, I remember one of the things that was always coming out by everyone is Tottenham won the all action number 8. Conor Gallagher was the number 1 player Spurs were looking at for months. We were trying to get, and then we didn't sign anyone of that ilk. But we got rid of Højbjerg, who's an experienced central midfielder. Got rid of Lo Celso, experienced central midfielder. And although both of them, their last season wasn't great, they're still 2 experienced players who Lo Celso used to come on and give us a goal every now and then, and they had guaranteed quality. Whereas right now, we've got Bissouma, who hasn't worked for 3 managers now, hasn't been a first-team starter for any of these. You got Bentancur, who's good, but he can't play the 6. I think everyone has seen now, when you put him in that deeper role, it's just not him. He's a bit more... He's a bit of a rash head, similar to Romero. He likes to run out. He likes to get out of position. Yeah. That's it. We need an experienced, someone who's positionally aware, very disciplined, and someone who's going to hold and sit in front and be a shield in front of that back line. And it seems like every time Spurs go in the window, we're not looking for that. Now, I do understand that trying to find that profile in the market, you do tend to have to spend big money. And maybe we're going to do that in the summer. But to be honest, we're 2 summers too late, because that should have been brought in last season. But if not last season, this season most definitely. Because he's trying to mold it to do, oh, yeah, we have 3 players of similar types. We just want to have 3 midfielders very similar that can do all the same thing. I'm sorry, football don't work like that. You can't do that, because then you've got 3 players trying to do similar things, and none of them are actually know what their role is. And as we saw the other day, the 2 goals we conceded, you had Gray and Bergvall in their half and Bentancur by himself. And to be fair, he was way too high up by himself anyway. So it's just a mess there. We need a 6 badly, but it doesn't look
it's
like
mad, isn't it? We talk about a 6, George, and I'm with you. I'm 100% with you that for me, on day 1, when this manager joined the club, the first thing we should have done, and we've been calling for it for years, is we need a 6. And I think I remember like doing shows with like Sean from Spurs Talk Show and stuff. Where he always used the saying, "We need a monster 6, a monster 6." And we're 2 years down the line, still no number 6, still kind of pigeonhole Basuma in there. Like you said, Bentancur goes in there, Sarr goes in there. None of them are defensive midfielders. None of them are that guy that naturally says, I snuff out danger. I get the ball and I start play off. And you're absolutely right. When we look at the game, and look, I've got the still images. When I looked at the goal from the other day, let me just make sure I get the right one. When you looked at the goal, so here, this is where they won the ball before when they won the ball on Sunday. And you can see here that this bloke is about to receive the ball in central midfield, the one by the ref. Yeah. And you look, Gray as our left back was way up the pitch. Papa Sarr's a centre mid. He's tracking back to save his life, right? Porro is not in line with the other 2 at the back. Bentancur is so far over to this right. And then what happens is this bloke in the middle, look at the gap. Look at the gap. Now, teams with a proper DM, that don't happen. They've got someone sitting there. He snuffs that out. So is that Ange, or is that the club not buying it, George? Because this is 3 windows. This is the 4th window now Ange has had, and still a DM doesn't seem to be a priority. And we've signed about 95 wingers.
Yeah. You're right on that sense. I think I'm a bit confused myself, to be fair, with that one. I don't really know the answer, but I do think there's a bit of both. I think Ange maybe hasn't identified that that's a key position for this system. And then if he hasn't identified that, then he's definitely got the wrong coaches working with him, because it's so clearly to see by every fan that watches us every week that we've got a hole in the midfield. And you just have to look at all the top teams right now, and every team that has took themselves from like a decent side to a next level side, they have to sign a top young mid or top number 6. You know, you've got Newcastle with like a Guimaraes who comes in there. He's one of the best around right now. Arsenal, as soon as they signed Declan Rice, their team went from here to here. They started to be real challengers.
Yeah.
Even Chelsea right now, when they got Caicedo in, and you're seeing him really, he's being one of the best midfielders in the league, because he just looked like you need to add that player at the back there that can shield your defense and just sweep up, because it's such a key position in football right now. We haven't got any. I think Gray could have the potential to do that in 4 or 5 years, but he's just not there yet. He hasn't even got the physicality to bully people in the midfield yet.
I agree with you completely. I keep hearing, so big up. So me and Phil, we always disagree. Love you, Phil. Hope you're well, man. But when we're saying Gray will be that 6 next season, we've seen no evidence, George, to suggest 1, that he will be, 2, that he could be, or 3, that he's good enough. Listen, I feel for Gray. I really do. No. I'm not one of these fans, by the way, that says, oh, this is all good experience for him filling in at other positions. Sure, let him play in his position first, though. Surely that should be the first and foremost. For me, if Gray was going to be our number 6, first of all, we'd have to see that Ange plays with a number 6, George, and he doesn't. Second of all, surely then you're turning around and saying, well, Gray, play there then. Let's bed him in. If for example, before I go around the houses, if we had seen this season, Archie Gray, when fit, starts games in a number 6 role, and you see that he makes some mistakes or he's a bit sloppy in possession, we can all turn around and go, he's 18, but if we're going to develop him in that position, cool. But he hasn't. What he's chosen to do is play him at left back instead of players like Spence or Reguilon. Play him at right back instead of players like Jed Spence when that's been available. Play him at centre back instead of people like Dorrington, for example. Yeah. For me, I think this is more fans saying this in hope than any actual evidence that this is going to happen. He's had the chance to play him there. And the last thing I'll say, George, sorry, because I waffled a bit there. The weekend, Papa Sarr, we knew, was 50-50 to play. Why not stick Gray in central midfield, put Serge Reguilon to left back, when we know that Serge Reguilon can't play tonight, George, because he's not in the Europa League squad. So for me, all of this, Gray's going to be that, Gray's going to be this. I've not seen anything to suggest this. And I think people are just going on hope rather than
Yeah, it's
reality here.
definitely a lot of hopium in that because let's be honest, most people don't watch Championship football, so they wouldn't have tuned into what he was doing at Leeds. And to be fair, at Leeds, he played right back more than he did play central midfield anyway. But yeah, no, to be honest, with that one, that's sort of where I know a lot of people call me an Ange apologist and all these things, but when I saw that move, I was really just. I was like, he's trying to do equations when it's a simple add and subtraction. Like, why are you overcomplicating something so simple?
Yeah.
And that's what leads me to question. I don't know where Ange's head is at a lot of the time because why would you do that? There is no simple. There's actually no explanation as to why you'd play a half injured player instead of putting. And I get none of us rate regular. None of us think he's that good. But at the end of the day, you're just risking another player to get injured instead of just putting him in there and saying, do you know what? You guys play a flat back four today. I know it's not our usual system, but we're going to have to adapt to the fact we got Reggie in there. We've got Davies. Like, we've got all these different players playing in there. You just need to adapt your system a little. He's shown little bits of it, but it's just not been enough. It's not been enough.
No, I agree. And do you know what? I always think when I talk about Gray, people think I'm getting on his back. I want to see him in midfield. Like, I'm not going to get excited about seeing a kid filling at right back or left back. I don't care. Get him in, put him in his position. Let's see what he's about. And that's the manager's job to have done that. By the way, I've just put this in the chat. Oh, hang on, it's cut my thing in half, is it? Yeah, so this is what Romano's just said. I say Romano said this. This is what the BAYERN director, by the way, he said, and that's Max Abel, however you say that. So yes, Mathys Tel wants to go, loan or permanent. We will assess all the options. This is a bit that makes me worry from a Tottenham perspective. I've very rarely had so many clubs call me about a player before. and then we're reckoning that Daniel Levy and Lang are going to go in and go, right, guys, how are we going to outbid all these teams? But look, away from Mathys Tel, away from Archie Gray and central midfield, etc. The state of the club at the moment, Jules, it's, look, I don't care whether we're Enoch in, Enoch out, Ange in, Ange out, Levy in, Levy out, all that. At the moment, all that should matter as Tottenham fans is we're a mess. And I want to get your take on this. Depending on who you speak to, I've always turned around and said, we're not going to get relegated because I don't think that the bottom three can string enough wins together to go past us. Other people will say, well, hang on, Savva, look at our fixtures coming up in the league. Where are we getting points from? Where are you with this? Are we in true danger of relegation or are we just in relegation form?
So you know what, Savva? I'll be honest. I've tried to deny the fact that we're in a relegation battle. You know, I'm trying to do. Right. We're a big club. We will never get relegated. You know, we're naturally getting.
I see you on these panel shows, George. I see you on these panel shows, putting your chest out. Don't worry about it.
No, 100%. Especially when I'm on panel shows, I feel even more defensive to the fact that no one's gonna say these things about Spurs game. I'm not gonna have it. But when we're in our little Spurs space, I haven't recognized that I don't identify where we can win any of our next games. I don't look at any of our next games, especially when you've lost to 4 of the teams below us. When you're in a relegation fight and you're in bottom half of the table, you have to beat the teams below you. That's the one thing you need to do. We've not done that. So I don't really have any confidence going into, you know, a Brentford game, going into a Manchester United fixture. We got Man City, we've got Ipswich. Like Ipswich, probably the one game I can look at and say, yeah, we might pick up a point, but even then, we lost to Ipswich already. So yeah, no, I don't think we're necessarily in a relegation fight, but at the same time, if those teams pick up points, like let's just say, I think it's Leicester versus Everton on the weekend. If Everton beat them, they go above us if we don't win Brentford. We are in a relegation fight. Like you said there, though, I don't think that the teams below us, the Wolves, the Ipswich and Southampton, are going to pick up a run of games where they can really take over us. But I don't think Spurs are going to, at this point, push up into that like top 8 or 9 or nothing. Like, we'd be lucky to get 10th or 11th at this point. Very lucky, because 10th, we're like 10 points behind.
10th or 11th is very kind. I mean, you know, my mate said to me yesterday, he went, oh, Savva, he's very chilled out, this guy. He went, oh, you worry too much. We're definitely going to finish top half. And I showed him the table and I went, I was like, we're 3 wins behind Fulham at the moment. And people go, oh, it's only 3 wins. But this is a team that's only won 1 in 11 Premier League games. Us, by the way. Yeah, look, when we look at the bottom there, I don't think Everton are going to go down, by the way. I think Everton are going to have too much. I think David Moyes is an experienced manager that he will, by hook or crook, George, make them defensively solid.
Yeah.
And they will get enough 1-0 really dirty wins that get them to be the last game on Match of the Day. You know, they're that boring. 1-0, that sort of game. Ange, I don't think can do that, which is my worry. We'll come to that in a minute. The question is this. If you look at Leicester, let's look at Leicester, Wolves and Ipswich. Southampton have gone, right? Leicester, Wolves and Ipswich. So there's an 8-point swing from Ipswich and Wolves to Tottenham Hotspur. So basically, if we win, I'll go really conservative with this. And I can't believe I'm going to say, if we win 3 of our last 15 games, right? If we win 20% of our last 15 games, that means that Wolves and Ipswich have to win 6 of their last 15 games. So again, you know, we can do the maths going upwards and upwards and upwards. Have we, George, got 3 wins in us? And have Wolves and Ipswich got 6 wins in them? Because that's what it's going to take for one of them to overtake us. For them to win 3 more games than we win between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. Neither of those teams have even got 6 wins in their first 23 games. So I don't see either of them getting 6 wins between now and the end of the season. I mean, Wolves probably could get like a 5 wins, but even then, like I said, if we're being really conservative, Spurs are probably going to win more than 3 games. But even if you look at the table now, trying to predict where those 3 games would be is extremely hard. But yeah, no, I definitely think when we're looking at it like this and you're looking at the table and you're trying to break it down, Spurs are just a bit off relegation. But I'll be honest, anything, if we finish below where we finished with, well, I think our last bad bottom half of the table finish was 2008, weren't it? When we finished 13th or something like that. We can't do lower than that. There's surely not. We can't do lower than that.
Man. Oh, it's mad. Apologies about that. My wife was calling. She never normally calls me during a workday, so I picked up thinking it was something bad. She goes, "Guess what? What? I just got asked for ID." I'm like, "She's 40 this year." I'm like, "What? I'm live. Go away. What are you doing?" Sorry about that, because she's constantly telling me that I look old. So, look, Phil, if the day me and you agree, Phil, hell will freeze over, my man. But thank you for always being in here. Just quickly, super chat here from Atavatron Wembley 1. I said, morning. An interesting dynamic to watch for tonight will be, as the window is proving, squad needs are irrelevant to Levy. He wants extra game money. We're gonna talk about Levy. I'm gonna leave this here. I'll come back to this, my man. I'm not ignoring it. I'm gonna come back to this. What I will say is, you lot today have been so Spursy on the likes. 106 likes and 520 of you in the chat is absolutely, I'm going to call it out, shocking. It's shit. Please do smash that button. And I've just put the link to George's channel in the chat. Guys and girls, show love. For people to set up a channel, it takes a lot of commitment. So please, 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 I've put it in the chat. Do-Rag Diaries. Please go over there and subscribe. And we want to be getting him to 1.1k minimum by the end of this show. In 1.09 at the moment, and he's going well. He's only just set up the channel, so please help there. George, back to the football. Yeah, it's madness that we're even having these conversations, right? I mean, none of us, even me, that people will call me negative and a skeptic and that, I'm sitting there going 7th this year. And people are going, you're negative. Never did I think we'd be in this position. You've touched upon the absolute goldmine there, though. When you're in this position, you've got to beat those around you. And the worrying thing is, George, is that we went to Palace. We didn't lay a glove on them. Ipswich came to us, beat us quite easily, to be honest. I mean, there wasn't any real panic for them. Leicester City come to us and won. Wolves came and took a point. This is the worry, right? That the only team down the bottom there, I mean, Everton, sorry, just beat us. So if we look at that table again, if you look recently, we beat Southampton, lost to Ipswich, drew with Wolves, lost to Leicester, lost to Everton, lost to Palace. It's worrying, right? It's worrying that if we can't beat them, do we want to be relying on, don't worry, Spurs turn up for the big games? Can't rely on that, can we?
No, we can't. We definitely can't rely on beating the bigger teams. I mean, it's just a really weird one when you like as a fan trying to approach it, because we actually play pretty decent in the bigger games. I mean, maybe apart from not even the Liverpool, like when we verse the bigger teams, it seems like the players are up for the occasion and they actually try to do something and they realize what they're facing against. And I think one of the biggest things for me is like the complacency in Spurs. It's been something that's sunk in for years now, like especially with when we go and play smaller sides in Europe. But now it seems like it's happening in the league. When you come up against these smaller sides, it's like a complacency where a lot of players maybe feel that, yeah, we're better than them, we're just going to go beat them. And that's not enough. These teams are fighting for their place in the Premier League. They're fighting for their livelihood. Most of these players know that if they get relegated, their wages are going to get cut in half. So they're fighting for every single game. And Spurs players don't seem to have that same passion going into it. And that's where you sort of have to question where the team is at, where the manager's at. And I know we've seen recently quite a few of the players come out and back Ange and say, we're behind him, and we want this to work out. But we need to see that on the pitch. And for me, effort-wise, it doesn't look like you are backing the manager on the pitch. A lot of you look like you're actually giving up halfway through the game. And that's where my questions lie, because especially against a smaller team, you expect your team to do something. You expect your team to score goals. But our biggest issue as well this season has been we don't win games, close games. We don't win. We don't even, it's straight up. We lose a close game 2-1, 1-0, or we go blow a team out of the park 3-1, 4-1.
Yeah. You know,
like fine margins kill us.
I think this is, let's talk about this then. Let's talk about this. I think the issue here is, big up Josh, big up my man, hope you're well. I think this is a real good conversation of players' application on the pitch versus managers' tactics. Now, what I mean by that is teams that are normally down the bottom and they're fighting and they're scrapping, they're hard. They have to go within themselves. They have to fight for every first ball, every second ball. They have to fight for every corner, every free kick, every set piece. But more often than not, what they do is hanker down and make themselves hard to beat. My first question to you, George, are Ange's tactics built for that? This wide open kind of inverted fullbacks, gung-ho high line, for me, does not scream we're ready to fight. That screams to me a little bit of denial. Don't worry, we're Spurs, we're going to be okay. Because I'm not seeing us 1-0 up against Leicester. We come out the first half. I'm thinking to yourself, and I always say this in my watch-alongs. People always laugh at me. I say, nothing silly for 5 minutes, Spurs. Nothing silly. Come out, first 5 minutes. Don't go gung-ho. Just settle into the game. Keep a few bodies in midfield behind the ball. No, not Spurs. We're wide open. 2 goals conceded in 4 minutes. This is going to hurt us if we keep doing these tactics, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. And I think as the season's gone on more and more, I've started to realize that Ange's tactics will only work with a specific set of players. You need players that play his way. And when you take 1 or 2 or potentially 3 players out of that system, it all falls apart. And I think that's the biggest issue is, and Tottenham, like that's where the identity issue is a mess, because Ange isn't a player that gets the best out of poor players. He's not going to be like a Mourinho or Conte, or they can see a rubbish player and then lift that floor from a rubbish player like Eric Dyer. He'll lift the floor from here to here. Like they can make these players better for a temporary period. I don't think Ange is that. Ange is about to make a top player even better, or he just needs players to fit in his system. And unfortunately, right now, there's so many players that don't fit the way that Ange wants to play. He keeps trying to shoehorn a lot of these players in, fit circle pegs into square holes, and it's not necessarily working. But yeah, no, I think the tactics have been an issue for a while now, and Ange we've seen he's tried to address it, but the way that he has addressed it hasn't necessarily been good enough. And at times, he probably does look out of his depth against some managers. I think some of these managers have schooled him, especially in that. I looked at that Brighton game, when we went the 2-0 up and then they come back in the second half, he absolutely got schooled by that Fabian Hertzler, because in the half time, you saw so many tactical changes from him. And even we see Arne Slot, you see Ruben Amorim mid-game, they see the other manager make a change. They're reacting. They're like, oh, all right, boys, look, we're going to change this system, done. They've seen changes. And it's just, you know what, mate? We're going to keep playing our way and we're just going to try and score a goal. And it's a bit of a mess. He needs to start to adapt more. And I don't think he's going to pick that up. And if he doesn't, he's necessarily going to lose his job real soon.
Do you know what my uncle says? And by the way, my uncle's been a Spurs fan for, God knows, 60 years, whatever. my uncle always says this to me. He says, Ange's tactics and style of play, he said, for people that like the way he plays, they're moments of tactics. So every now and then you go, look at that from Ange Ball.
Yeah.
But he said, as a complete ethos and philosophy, it doesn't work. I.e., he just forgets all the basics of football. He forgets the man-to-man marking. He forgets the keeping it tight in midfield. He forgets the triangles of playing out of the back with 3 or 4 players rather than with one player trying to drive through everyone. And I think this sums it up. When I looked at this, and again, I always say in this picture, right? In this picture, we know Basuma messed up dribbling through, right? But when your philosophy is Basuma's got the ball on the halfway line, when your philosophy is nearly every other player other than the 2 centre-backs are out of position in that horseshoe, it means to me that they're not coached, they're not drilled. And I know there's a lot of people that will say, these players, they can't play as tactics. But the problem is these tactics, for me, fundamentally, won't work over a 38-game period. I think they were going to work in certain scenarios. But you look at Liverpool when they've won league titles, Chelsea, City. These clubs have been hard to beat. These clubs have been very, very solid throughout the middle. You look at Man City in their peak years when they had one fullback would go into midfield. They'd make a 3 at the back. Rodri would sit in front of them. Now you've got a 4 at all times at the back, right? You look at Liverpool. They've got that base, that 4. Yeah, they've got the 2 centre mids that don't go crazy. The 2 centre mids in McAllister and Gravenberch do their job. They are central midfielders. Look at Chelsea throughout the years with the likes of Makelele, with the likes of Essien, these sort of players. Now you look at Ange's tactics. I personally can't understand, George, how anyone looks at these tactics and says that's ever going to work. I just feel it's too out there. It's too out there for me.
I do think that there is, like I said, there's moments and there is games where I look at and I say, yeah, the tactics do look good, but also at the same time, there's a bit too much chaos and no control. And I thought going into the second season that we would gain a bit. And to be fair, when we started off the season, it looked like we had a little bit more control in the way that we approach games. But also, I think a lot of our players have low football IQ. I think there's so many of them, especially when Pedro Porro is the key man for that. He doesn't know what he's doing a lot of the times. I call him a grenade launcher because he's just trying to play hero ball, trying to get that ball into the wide. He thinks he's a number 10, but he's playing right back. And we've got a few players like this because when I look at Jed Spence, whenever he plays, it's like he knows how to play a fullback role. He knows exactly what to do. And although, Ange might tell him to invert, there's a lot of times where he's overlapping because he knows the overlap is the right way to go. And sometimes you need players of that ilk to just have the arrogance to not always listen to the manager and use their own football IQ. But I think, again, as the season's gone on, I've started to realize and I've started to look at it and I say, our midfield is where there's the biggest issue. We don't have a midfield. We're very similar to, if you look at Manchester United and under Ten Hag, they used to have their players throw forward, and this gap between the midfielders was where the issue was. Midfielders can't string passes together because you've got one midfielder here and then the other one who's he's up behind the Arsenal press. It doesn't behind the press. It doesn't make no sense. So I think the tactics are an issue. There are good moments and there's good bits about the tactics that I like, and I think there's bits where I look like and I say, if we've got the right players in there, it could work. But also the fact that we play so transitionally and it's constantly back and forth. We're killing our players and we're killing ourselves.
Look, listen, I agree with you with that. But look, do you know what? From my point of view, I just think this man, Ben Kaufman said this best. He said he's trying to reinvent a wheel whilst removing the nuts and bolts that hold the wheel together. And I love that, Sam, because for me, I'm all for people that want to be innovators. You know, if we look at Pep Guardiola, he's innovated football. Whether people like that or not, he has innovated his style and blah, blah, blah. For me, though, don't remove the nuts and bolts of what makes a team hard to beat. And unfortunately, this manager, for me, has completely neglected that. And what we're going to see now is whilst you're down the bottom, whilst you're down there, how are you going to make us hard to beat, Ange? How are you going to, like when we've gone to Everton, you're going to turn around and say, right, Everton, they're in a bad way at the moment. They've got a brand new manager who's come in, right? Let's not be gung-ho in midfield. Yeah. You look at that second goal against Everton. Archie Gray, not his fault where he's told to play. Archie Gray's in their semicircle in their half, one pass around him, and Dye's got the whole of our pitch to run into. And this is when I go back to this. I'm so sorry, George. When I go back to this sort of thing here, players like this here, they should not have that space. This guy here, look at that. That picture sums up Tottenham's formation perfectly, right? First of all, there is no back four. There's no back four in a row, right? The fullbacks are so wildly out of position, it's unreal. Bentancur has had to come over and cover here because he's got no one else in midfield alongside him. Pathé Sarr, you can see, was in the other half. Pathé Sarr was in the other half. This is the ball in our half of the pitch. And for me, this is from fullback to centre-back through to centre mids. He has not got this right. He has not got this balance right. And we've got to sort that out to grind points out, Jules. I can't believe we're talking about this. We've got to grind some dirty 1-0 wins from somewhere.
Yeah, we've got to.
I feel like I've gone back to the 90s. I feel like I've gone back to when I was watching Spurs grind out 1-0 wins in the 97, 98 season to stay up. He's got to. It's just too wide open for me. I'll tell you what, I'll sum it like this, Jules, really quickly. For me, there's no partnerships. So all those pictures I've shown you, the centre-backs are nowhere near each other, right? Centre-back should be a partnership. You look here when they've lost the ball. Look here. Look how far apart Gray and Dragusin are, right? Centre-backs should never be that far apart at
Do
any
you
point.
think, though, Savva, that there is a bit of those, like, let's be honest, these are two players filling in at the back and they probably don't. I mean, we heard Archie Gray come out himself. He said he's learning off of Dragusin, and I was concerned when I heard that. When I heard he's taking notes of Dragusin, I'm extremely concerned because you should be talking to our experienced players. And to be honest, even our most experienced centre-back in Romero, he has issues with his positional. He rushes out and he's a bit rash. We don't have anyone at that central line who's really experienced playing that central back line, but he's even a leader at the back. And I think that's where some of our issues do arise. But like I said, when you point to chemistry, I think sometimes you need them. What Ben Davies does so well is he knows he's been around for a long while. So he knows positional wise, he's going to pull players in. He's going to talk to them. And usually we actually play a really good offside trap when he's in there. But that's where the issue is. Like you said there, the partnerships and the players linking up. There's not a lot of communication. It seems like everyone's just trying to listen to the manager and do their own role, but not actually focus on the pitch and what is needed at this moment. So I do agree with you and say that the tactics do present that issue, but also do think that it's made to be look a lot worse than usual because of the players that are filling in there at the moment. Yeah,
possibly. I mean, look, from my point of view, by the way, I wasn't just talking about the centre halves. I'm talking about right back to right winger, left back to left winger. The two centre, you watch our centre mids, they're never actually close to each other to control a game. One of them gets the ball, the other two seem to go, right, I'm flying up. Look, at the end of the day, we can say what we want. A manager's job, though, is now you're in a bad situation. We're in a shit situation. Whatever we want to say, this is where he's got to earn his money. This is why he gets paid £5 million a year. What are you going to do to make us difficult to beat? And at the moment, what I'm seeing is we're going into every game and he's not trying. That's the criminal thing for me, George. Forget whether we like his tactics in general. The criminal thing for me is we're not in a position now where we can do that. We're in a position where you've got to go, we're in a dogfight. And this man has got to change something in these last 15 games. Because if he goes down, and I don't think we will, but if he does, he will go down as the worst manager Tottenham have ever had. And, you know, as much as we've got injuries, that 11 we put out against Leicester was better than the 11 Leicester put out. Yeah, but tactically, Ruud van Nistelrooy got it right. He put Samara and Winks. You watch Samara and Winks in that game. Didn't leave each other's sides. No. They played as a two. You watch ours. You watch Pathé Sarr and who was it, Bentancur. They're never near each other. So I think he's got a lot of work to do. And for me, he's just demonstrated that he doesn't know what to do in this scenario. But he is here. What do you make about all this noise about him? Whether he should be sacked. Why hasn't he been? And what's your belief in? Lots of people say, they're waiting for the Liverpool game. They're waiting to be out of Europe. what do you think's happening with Ange and his job security?
Do you know, I've been so on, and like I said, we've had conversations about this. I've always been a fan of Ange, and I've always wanted Ange to do good, and I've liked him, but also it does get to a point, even as a fan, like I'm a Spurs fan first before I'm a fan of our players or our manager. We're in a position where it's unacceptable for any manager, even if this was bloody Pep Guardiola, I'd be saying, mate, like we're 15th. You can't really buy much more time, and like you pointed to there, a lot of the teams we've lost to recently, we've had better teams than we should have beat Wolves. We should have beat Everton. We should have beat Leicester. There's no excuses as to why we're not beating these teams, because even with the injuries, we have more quality than them. It's the way that we've set up and the way that we've played. We've killed ourselves in them. But I'll be honest, I do think that the fact that he's not been sacked is mainly because there isn't no plan. There's no plan to bring in someone else. Like when Pochettino got sacked, within 18 hours, Mourinho was in. We've seen now that every time another manager's got sacked, apart from when Nuno got sacked, we had Conte pretty soon. But after that, we saw the fallout after Conte. We had Stellini, then we had Mason, and then it was just a mess. And then it took us however many managers to even get to Ange. And even before Nuno, however many managers it took us to get to the fact that we got Nuno. I think the Spurs board are a bit scared in the fact that they don't want another situation to play out that way, because they're probably looking at that. Spurs aren't that attractive at this moment in time. 15th in the table, you're not really going to be able to get any big managers in, especially when Spurs aren't even showing ambition in the transfer window. They've not shown ambition in the last couple of years. So a lot of managers will look at Spurs and say, all right, they're not even going to come in. They're not going to give me my players, but you're going to expect me to try get us out of this mud and pull us up. I don't think, and the quality of manager that is probably going to specialize in getting the best out of the squad and making us survive probably isn't the quality of manager what Spurs are looking at. We're probably trying to get like a Marco Silva, or a Raiola, or one of these top managers that are doing their thing right now. I don't think we can actually attract them. A lot of these people are going to look at Spurs and say, why would I go to Spurs mid-season? Maybe in the summer, but in the mid-season, it's not such a it's not really a role that many people are going to look to take up. So I look at it and say probably that's the main reason why he's not been sacked. I don't think he's done himself any favors, especially in these most recent games. And I wouldn't be surprised. I said, like, I want to see Ange play out the season. I want to see if he could potentially win a trophy. Either way, if we do win a trophy, it's not going to be a great season. It's still going to be a failure in the sense that our league position is so poor. But I mean, let's be honest, all of our Spurs fans have been starving. A trophy, we need one. We need a trophy. So if he does win one, he would have done something that many managers couldn't do before. But yeah, there is a bit of a, like, what direction are we going? What is the strategy? Because it's not very clear right now. And as a club, we just look a mess. So I just think, yeah, we can give him till Liverpool. But once he gets knocked out of Liverpool, if he gets knocked out by Aston Villa, what are we playing for? You can't just say, oh, we're going to give him until he gets knocked out of Europa League then, because that's not good enough. You need to have a plan.
You know what? I don't disagree with anything you said there. I'd just like to put my spin on some of it. I don't disagree with you on any of it. I think, first of all, I think the danger of giving him till the end of the season is, sure, give him to the end of the season. But if he does take us down, that would have looked like to have been the worst decision in football history. Second of all, no other football club is taking that risk. Like, if you look at it, West Ham got their new manager in for 6 months and went, nah, this is not working. See you later. We'll bring Potter in, right? Man United, nah, this is not. We've given it Ten Hag enough. He's won trophies. It's not working. We're going to bring an Hammer in, right? When we talk about winning trophies, yeah, I agree with you. If he can win a trophy, for me, that is the only way he could salvage his tenure as Spurs manager for me, right?
I agree.
When people say to me, if he wins the League Cup, would I still want him sacked? George, unfortunately, yes. And it wouldn't be that I'm not grateful that we've won a trophy and we've been crying out for him for 17 years, but it's based off what you said just before winning trophies. You said, but what is the overall plan? Yeah. In a moment of time, winning a League Cup, fine. But I can't see under this manager, I think too much has happened now. You know, like when you're in a really bad relationship and, you know, it's bad for so long that you keep convincing, you know, the two lovers keep convincing each other, we'll get through it. But so much has happened that this person can't let go of this shit and you can't let go of that shit.
It's funny because I literally explained this the other day. I said, this is how I feel about Angela. I feel like I've been in a bad relationship and I'm trying to back in. I'm trying to make it work. But he just keeps proving me wrong. He's not helping himself out.
Exactly, mate. And that's my problem. I think the key thing for me is, look, I'm probably more extreme than others. And I said last year I didn't want him. When he first came in, I was all for it. And everyone knows the moment that I was Ange out, George. And I'll show you just in case you've never seen it. Everyone knows the moment I was Ange out. And it was this. Where are we? It was this. This was the moment I decided this manager is not for me. But I was told at the back end of last season, I was told by everyone, like, chill out. Yeah. See what he does with the first 3 months of next season. Cool. Well, I saw what he did with the first 3 months of this season before everyone got injured, and it was our worst Premier League start for 18 years. Then it was, see what he does up until January. Now, in between that time, what it's allowed people to do is go, oh, but the injuries. And I'm like, okay, but he was shit before the injuries. So now I'm just at the stage, George, where I'm like, cool, go and win a League Cup. But I don't see the plan, George. And if me and you for 1 minute can take away the right nowism that football fans have, if we can take out this season, I'm looking ahead to next year, the year after, and thinking, is this manager going to adapt? Is this manager good at nurturing young players because that's the route we're going down with our signings? What is the plan? And all of my 42 years of being on this planet tells me this has got failure in the long term written all over it. That may be harsh, George, but that's where I'm at.
No, it's understandable. I think, like you said there, it's the strategy and the plan, and with Ange doesn't really match up, because if you look at Ange and his tenures at all the previous clubs, he's always been at a club that's very similar to like a Manchester City, where they invest very heavily, they get the players he wants, and usually he's one of the better teams in the league, so he's going to dominate the ball, he's going to dominate possession, his football is going to look amazing when you're Celtic playing against Aberdeen and right. These teams, because you're the most heavily invested club in the country. But when you're Spurs and you invest the way that we do, and that's where I look at it and say, I don't really think that this probably will work out for the long-term future, because Ange isn't the manager that's probably going to work with the strategy that Spurs are going with. So we probably need to find, what we need to do really and truly is find a coach, like someone who's a real good at coaching football, coaching players, and gets the best out of some young and players that are going to, is going to lift the ceiling of these players and get the best out of young players. That's why I'm probably looking. Yeah. He could be, but even the Iraola one, I look at that and say, a lot of people point to the fact, the way Ange plays, he's caused all these injuries. Bournemouth play 1 game a week and they've got 10 injuries right now. A lot of them are similar injuries, high pressing football. You can question whether some of his tactics would work at a bigger club as well, because he's playing Bournemouth, and naturally, whenever teams are coming up against them, it's a lot more open football. He's pressing high and it's working for them. I don't necessarily think that does transfer over to Spurs as easily, but he is knowing coaching wise he's getting the best out of a lot of players. Kluivert, Semenyo, and some of these players 2 or 3 years ago people wouldn't have give half a look at, but now everyone's saying, oh, I want to sign in, these are top players. Kirkes as well, top
there's risks with every manager. There's absolutely risks. I just think you were spot on with the coach aspect. But first and foremost, I want a manager, and this is what Poch did brilliantly. I know we all go back to Poch, but this is what Poch did superbly. He took players that were at the club that we were all going, oh, God, we're a mess. And a year and a half later, we're all going, what a well-drilled, well-oiled football team we are, with 7 of that same 11 that were playing before he arrived. And for me, this is where I look at it and I go, can Ange coach? And so far, George, I've not seen any evidence that any of our players have been coached. And that for me is a huge, huge worry. If it is, and I hate this, I'm so sorry, a youth project. If it is a youth project, get in a manager or a coach that works with youth and drills them and coaches them and makes them better as a unit. And this manager, for me, I think so many people now have gone so far down this Ange in route. They're so invested in Ange that they're not actually seeing the long-term damage this could do to this football club. That's only my opinion.
It's more than understandable. I think one of the things I pointed out even early in the season, and I remember Alex, Mr. Box Office, he said it too, defense. Like, I've looked at our defense and say none of those players have improved with the basics. I think I
Would
look at
agree.
Pedro Porro and say defensively, he looks exactly the same as when he came, and his time at Sporting Lisbon still makes the same lapse in concentration, still doesn't get goal side. Like one of the most basic rules you learn at 10 years old, get goal side of your man at the back. He doesn't do it. Romero, he looks like he's regressed a bit this season, and he hasn't been, he needs to be controlled. He needs someone to control the way that he plays, and he doesn't look like he's improved as well. So no, I do agree. I look at some of our players and say the basics haven't really improved in them, and I question whether that's Ange or the fact that Ange isn't surrounded by good coaches as well. We've got bloody Miles Jedinak, Matt Wells, and some of these players, some of these people that aren't experienced.
Spot on. But again, that's the manager's job to go, right, listen, I always talk about, hang on, just quickly before I come to that, we have just read from Fabrizio Romano that one more club has called today for Mathys Tel. Aston Villa have also asked for the deal conditions. Duran has leaves for Al Nassr, and Aston Villa in the market for a new forward. Contact made for Tel. Now, again, so he said at the bottom, there are 7 clubs involved. Let's be brutally honest. Aston Villa can offer Champions League football to Mathys Tel. They can offer a Champions League battle in the league. Chelsea can offer a Champions League battle. Guys, put Mathys Tel to the back of your minds for the moment, is my advice for being an old fan.
Yeah, no, I said it. As soon as I saw the deal, I was like, yeah, too many clubs involved. Spurs ain't going to get this one. It's going to sound nice for the last few days. I remember when we had Dybala a few years, they were like, he's coming in. Oh, they agreed the fee and all these things. He's just like, no, mate, it's not happening. This is a smoke screen. We're probably going to bring in, what do you see that? A Noah Okafor or whatever the bloody hell his name was that we're looking at. Like that's the type of deal Spurs are going to look at. This Mathys Tel deal, I don't think will happen as exciting as it would be.
Yeah, and by the way, they're talking about £50 million would be the fee. I mean, that's a lot for a 19-year-old, isn't it? It's a lot when you've got a lot of issues all over the pitch. Hey, we'll get back to that. I was going to say about you were talking about the coaching staff surrounding Ange. This was the one thing I always loved, and everyone knows my favourite manager of the last 30 years at Tottenham was Harry Redknapp. Everyone knows that he's my favourite manager. We talk about Poch. Harry, for me, what I loved about Harry was he was the put the arm around the player and come on, you're my boy, get out there, son, go and do your thing, go and enjoy yourself. But he surrounded himself with football people, the likes of Joe Jordan, Kevin Bond, people that had been there, seen it, done it, ex-pros, senior coaches, and Tottenham under Redknapp looked so well drilled, so well coached. The players were playing with smiles on their faces. There was no inverted fullbacks. There was no big gaps in midfield. There were no star signings. He went and bought people like Wilson Palacios from Wigan. Yeah. You know what I mean? He went and bought people like that. And Wilson Palacios wasn't the greatest footballer I've ever seen in my life. But Wilson Palacios came in and done all that dirty work that no one wanted to do in midfield. I think we've got to get back to that. For me, I'm going to say this phrase. I don't know. This might piss some people off. Actually, it shouldn't. I think we need a football purist. Someone who goes back to basics, comes in and says, you know what? I've got some good players here. I'm not going to win a league. I'm not expected to win a league, but I've got some good players. I've got some good youth. How do I gel that? And how do I go in the market? And like Harry did, wheeling and dealing, getting a couple of good solid pros from here or there. And how do I make this club a cohesive unit? And I'm sorry, George, I can't ever see that being Ange. I can't ever see it being solid. I think it's always going to be, we win 4-0 or we lose to teams like Palace and Leicester. And I just feel like it's always going to be like that.
Yeah, I think the only way with Ange that you can battle that is if you bring in top players, and that's the question, is whether we I think if you bring in top players, then you minimize the fact that a lot of these games where you as you say, there's fine margins when we're losing 2-1 and you need someone to get a goal. If you bring in a top player like an Mbeumo or a player that creates for them, I feel like one of the biggest problems is we don't have a player that can break down low blocks. I mean, breaking down low blocks has been our biggest issue. We don't have someone who's going to take that responsibility like Son used to 4 or 5 years ago. Used to pick up that ball on the left wing, run at his man, cut inside and shoot from 25 yards. We don't have those players with the confidence to do that. And essentially, that's what you need at times. You need those players to, when the game is a fine margin, you need someone to step up and take the mantle to perform. And when you don't have those players in your team, like you said, you need a coach's coach that's going to get a well-oiled team that's going to make sure they're breaking it down together. But that's the thing. I don't think Spurs are going to sign those top players. So will it work out with Ange? It's hard to see at the moment. That's the thing. It is very hard to see.
Yeah, and that's why I know. Listen, when I said what I said about the cups, George, I knew that it would piss a few people off in my chat. But hey, I wouldn't be me with my opinions if I didn't piss a few people off every day. But listen, I think these people are misunderstanding what I'm saying. Do I want to win a trophy? Yes. But do I see that winning a League Cup over 5 games, that tells me that finishing 15th, 16th, 17th, and it tells me that that's the right path? I don't think so. And the worrying thing is when people are saying we'll use that as a springboard to build from. But the thing is, he's not using the league, the cup form to build, because when we go to the league, he's just doing the same thing every game. So for me, if like, you know, when we played Man City and we won 4-0,
yeah,
that Man City game, forget the fact it was 4-0, George. We can all celebrate that and blah, blah, blah. That game was a game where we knew Man City would have all the football. It's what Man City do, right? They dominate football and people like to counter them. That was the game where, by hook or crook, we played differently. The fullbacks didn't invert. The 2-3 centre mid sat in and we countered. And I looked at that and I thought, if you can take that and import that into your regular tactics, we're going to be a good team. If you do that, we've got the players that can play like that. But then the very next league game, it was we've gone back to gung ho, wide open, and this is why I don't think he's going to learn, because you could give him someone earlier in the chat. I think it was LFC Copite. Big up to LFC Copite. Said earlier on in the chat, you could give him Maldini, Nesta, Cafu. The problem is this man's tactics are so chaotic that you're going to lose more games than you win. And that's for me. Can he, in your opinion, George, at the age of 57, 58, is he capable of adapting and changing and learning?
That's what it is. I do think he's very old school. He's very stubborn. He's very, I'm a stand on my principles. I'm a stand on my morals. And these are the things. And it's just the way I am type thing. And he said that. And yeah, I think that's where the issue is. I don't think sometimes that he's willing to just admit, look, I got it wrong and I'm going to change and adapt. That Man City game showed a lot of promise. And even last year when we went away and we got the 3-3, it showed a lot of promise because we had so many injuries. Players filled in and put out a really good performance. It was very controlled in the way that we attacked. We broke them down in moments and it looked so well. But yeah, it's yeah, I don't know if he's willing to adapt to the new way football was played. And I don't know if tactically he's kept up to date with the way that all these new managers are coming, like these new young managers, Graham Potters and so on, are so their tactical analysis is so high compared to what it used to be 5 or 10 years ago. They're up there with like the Peps, and maybe they're probably missing some of the other man management bits. But the way that even Thomas Frank, I think tactically, the way that he approaches games, you can just see they know a bit more than Ange. And yeah, man, I don't think he is going to change.
Can I give you the best example of this? And by the way, you tight gits in the chat, there's 590 of you in here, only 180 likes, which is absolutely disgusting. We're now talking about like Gregor Raziak conversion rates. Let's do that. Also on the subscriber front, we've had 1 new subscriber today. Come on, guys and girls. And I think you've had a few. I think if I look, George, I think you've had a few today. But I want us to get George to get more. I've put his link in the chat. It is pinned. I'm putting it in again now. There's over 600 of you in here. Surely if 100 of you go over there and subscribe to George. Listen, loads of you are saying you like what George is saying in the chat. Yeah, it's like what George said about Spurs. Don't say it. Prove it. Prove it on the pitch. Smash that subscribe button. Please subscribe to all the Spurs community. George, where were we? Right. I want to talk about tonight. We have got Elfsborg. Now, normally you'd be sitting there going, yeah, guaranteed win. And realistically, it should be. Is the pressure off because of the fact that we should qualify in the top 8? However, if we don't win tonight, you would expect that we drop out of the top 8. So what are you expecting from tonight? Home to Elfsborg, who are They're
Just
not
look.
guaranteed a progression at the moment. They're 20th of the 24, 2 points above Porto and 3 points above 20 and Braga, who can catch them. What do you make of tonight? What should be the stance?
It's tough, man, because I even saw they tweet. They said London is yellow, and I was like, yeah, man, they might actually win today. They had a cheek to come and say that, and I was like, yeah. So it's one of those ones where, like you said, we usually look at these games and say easy win. We're gonna plow through them, but even as we said, I went to that AZ Alkmaar game. That was a tough one. Like we made that so much harder than it should have been, and that was early in the season. And same thing for one of our earlier games against who was it? It wasn't Karabag, it was Ferencvaros, I think it was. There's been a few of our games especially in the Europa League, where they should be easy wins, but we make them a lot tougher than they need to be. So when I'm looking at this game, I'm looking at it and say, yeah, we should get through it, but I don't even know what players are available. You know, we got Madison out. Kulu and Ko's been dead on his feet for a couple games. Kulu and Porro, even though I think Porro's been poor, but these players have played so many minutes. So it's really hard to predict what Spurs is going to come out. And as we saw in the Hoffenheim game, we just got dominated. Like, we've been dominated quite a few times in this Europa League. And yeah, so the expectation for tonight is that Spurs win, innit? Spurs go out there, get 3 points. And as I said, I feel like we need to secure a position within that top 5, ideally, because then you get one of the lower teams. And to be fair, as we've seen with the Champions League, finishing in the top doesn't necessarily mean that you get a rubbish team in the next round, because there's quite a few good teams down near the bottom that could still they can still hurt you. I mean, Roma, we saw what happened that game. They're in 21st position. Hoffenheim in 28th, and they gave us a tough game. Porto would be a very tough game. They're 25th. They're not even qualified right now, but if they make it into that sort of early 22s, 23s, it could be a team that we face. So yeah, no, it's hard to predict a win, but I suppose we'll go out there and always say Spurs are likely to get the 3 points in this one, as you'd hope anyway.
Yeah, man, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I like these new formats. They make it very interesting on last days. I mean, you can see there. So at the moment, you'd say, look, there's no issues. We're comfortable. It's in, finishing top 8 is in our own destiny, right? Now, the question is, let's go away let's get Lazio out of the picture. Lazio have qualified, right? It doesn't matter what Lazio do tonight. They've qualified. I don't think that's the same for everyone. So let's scroll down to Frankfurt. Right. So Frankfurt, an athletic club, I think barring disaster, they will go through. Man United have got it in their own destiny as well. Now, if we look down here, right, if we look at this, Tottenham Hotspur, what we don't want, George, is it's not a disaster to drop into that 9th to 24th place, but it adds 2 more games. Yeah. It adds 2 more games to an already packed list of games. So for me tonight, I don't care if it's dirty, scrappy. We've got to get that win, because Galatasaray, Bodo Glimt, Victoria Poznan, Olympiacos, Rangers, all of these teams. Let's scroll down if there is anyone past Rangers. Other than Rangers, these other teams would have to have a brilliant goal difference. Yep. All of those teams can go above us if we lose tonight. So, got to win, right? This is what you were talking about earlier. We're playing these teams at home, like Leicester, like Wolves, like Ipswich, Elfsborg. No disrespect, that's got to be one of these games where we turn up and show our quality, isn't it? Got to be.
Surely. But I think Ange needs to approach this game in the right way and not try to overcomplicate it as he has done in many of the other games. I think Hoffenheim last week, a lot of us got, we thought we were going to finally see Gray in midfield and so on, but lo and behold, he done some changes, and it's like we need to just see the right changes. I don't want to see Gray at left back again today. We've seen against Galatasaray, we've seen against Hoffenheim, he gets exposed, and teams will focus on, once they see that, they're going to attack the young boy down there. He's not a fullback. So yeah, he just needs to try not overcomplicate it, get some solid players in the positions. I think we're going to see Van der Ven back, so that'll be a huge boost, definitely. But again, even with that one, don't risk Van der Ven for too much. Even if we just have 45 minutes of him, I beg you, take him off. Like, I don't want to see another injury, especially to one of our best players.
And if you do play Van der Ven, let's not have a gung-ho high line that's asking him to make these recovery runs. Leave him at the back to get some minutes in his legs, and let's not play a crazy high line, because we keep doing this. We keep doing this. Realize, and do you know what? They've just whilst I've been speaking to you there on Sky Sports, they've just put a graph up of Spurs with and without Van der Ven. And more worrying than Spurs with and without Van der Ven is we've got to look at this as a serious issue now that this guy is always injured. Doesn't matter if we will say when he's back, when he's fit. This guy's had 4 hamstring injuries in 18 months, right? We can't plan for just having Mickey Van der Ven. That's got to be addressed, George, because they showed something like there, like he's missed like 30 odd games since he's been at Tottenham or something. And when a player's injured like that, you've got to account for that every game, right? Every season.
Yeah, no, we need to try find other solutions, and even with that, the harder thing is you probably need to find a solution that's very similar to Van der Ven, because if you're going to back the manager, and obviously the long-term future of the manager is under question, but if you do want to bring someone in who's going to be similar, you need to find someone who's fast-paced, going to be able to play at a high line, and there's a few players out there, but again, we don't need another young 18, 19 or 20-year-old, because Van der Ven, let's have it right, even when he come in, probably performed a lot better than many expected. And he is a young player himself, still learning. Many people forget he's like 22 years old and same age as Dragusin. So he's still learning, still picking things up. You need to sign someone with experience in that. I saw links to like players like Skriniar and stuff. That would be completely wrong because he'd end up he'd get lost in the Premier League with the high lines and so on. But yeah, no, the amount of games he's missed, as people say, he's got cheese strings for hamstrings, and the way that we play has not helped. There's so many times, I think there was one game, like Carabao game when we played and Dragusin got sent off. You're just watching him sprint after sprint after sprint, and we were all sitting there going, mate, you can see the injury long off when he's having to sprint so many times. And you see with Van der Ven a lot, he tends to hold his hamstring very early in the game. Like once he does a couple of sprints, you can see him start to slowly slow down. But yeah, no, it's a risk that I'm not willing to take anymore, man. We've got to try and manage his minutes and manage the way that we're playing him.
Do you know what? You're bang on. We're at the stage as a fan base that when we see that long ball over the top and you see Mickey on the half turn start turning back, we all go, oh, shit. Not because we think he's going to mess it up, but it's like his hamstring. Oh, God, he's okay. And then every time now he grabs it, you go, oh, God. And again, though, this has got to be down to management. And I hate to bring it back to Ange, but this has got to get back to management. If you've got a player like that who you know is susceptible to hamstring injuries, your whole tactic can't be built around one man recovering. Yeah. It can't be. He's got to find and adapt and different ways of playing. Big up, Papa Sarr said, please Savva back the team for once. Papa Sarr, if you saw how much money I've spent in 40 years traveling the globe following this football team, I've got a bloody YouTube channel about the club, and you're telling me to back the team for once. I'll tell you what, why don't you put in some hard work on the training ground, Papa Sarr, and you get better at football. Big ups to them. Look, one thing I would say is, sorry, this is what I was going to say before and I forgot. When you talked about managers and adapting and some of the younger coaches, this is what I love about an Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe, did an absolutely phenomenal job with Bournemouth. He took them from they were 1 minute away from going into the conference, into the National League. And then in the next 7 or 8 years, he got them all the way through to the Premier League. He went through all the leagues. And, he kept them in the top half of the table for a number of years, flirted with European football, and then eventually got relegated. But what he did, he took a couple of years out. He said he went to Porto, Barcelona, Ajax. He went around to all of these football institutions across the world and learned different coaching methodologies and picked up bits from everywhere. And you can see that now when you look at his Newcastle team. His Newcastle team, like if you look at the Arsenal game, the Man United game, the Spurs game, they go front foot in the first half. They overload. They get bodies forward. They get their goals, right? And then in the second half, they go a bit more. Hey, we can sit in. We can defend this a bit more. And Matt, you're trying to prove to me you're not a troll. Stop being silly, mate. Stop, Matt. I get it. I know you love Ange, but this is silly. He wouldn't get us relegated. He's a very good football coach.
Yeah,
that's madness. Each to their own. But when you say things like this, everyone is now calling you a troll, right? So read the room. Anyway, back to Eddie Howe. This is what I liked about them. Like, even when they came to Spurs, first half, they dominated us. Second half, it was almost like cool. Go on, have the ball. We're comfortable. Our back four solid. I'll stick 3 men in midfield, break us down, and we'll hit you on the counter-attack. I want a manager like that. I want a manager that can go first half this, second half this, in-game this. Last example I'll give you, you know the Arsenal game? I think we all watched it when they beat them 2-0 in the cup. First half, they were excellent. They were excellent. Second half, he takes off Isak, puts on Lloyd Kelly and goes to a 3 at the back with wing-backs, tucked them all in. And I thought, that's a coach. That's a guy who's worked on this on the training pitch. I want that. I want that at my football club. I want adapting. Sorry for the
no. It's you're right there. It's so refreshing to see. And I mean, many of us, even before we got Ange, we wanted Arne Slot, and now you're seeing Arne Slot does these things so much in game. It's the reactive stuff, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is what, especially nowadays, when you have 5 substitutions, because when you have 3 subs, it used to limit the amount of the adaptability that you would have with your squad. With 5 substitutions, you can really change the whole way that your team plays. And those subs are so key to make what you're actually trying to do. With Ange, and at times, he's always just trying to go the like for like. He's always trying to just do, I'll bring off a striker for a striker. I'll bring off the right-sided player for a right. It's too simple. And then when he does overcomplicate it, and he'll go, all right, we're going to play 2 in midfield and we're going to go 4 up top. It's like, these probably aren't the right decisions to make. It seems like you're just going for the game because, like when you play Football Manager, you might throw on an extra striker to think you need an extra goal. And it's a very simple thing. But when you're actually watching it play out, system-wise, we open ourselves up. Teams are killing us in the transition. And every single game, it seems like every team has 3 or 4 clear-cut opportunities. And that's where the issue lies. So, no, the in-game adaptability is refreshing to see in some of these other managers, but it does hurt Ange's stock because we haven't seen it often enough.
No, absolutely. But by the way, Adiz, I'm not look. Just I think we do this a lot on YouTube channels. Just because I praise a manager or a player of another club doesn't mean I think Tottenham are going to sign them. I'm just saying that's what I like. What I like about Eddie Howe. I think he's really respectful in press conferences. I think he speaks really well. He comes across well. On the sideline, you can see he's cajoling. He's always speaking to his number 2. They're always speaking and talking. And listen, he had a really tough time last year where they had a lot of injuries, but they still were never 15th in the Premier League, right? They ended up finishing 8th or whatever they did. And this year, they're now 6 points off second. I think he's done a really good job. A very, very good job. And what makes me laugh, the revisionism, not from you, Adiz, but the revisionism now of, but he's got a quality squad. Hang on. At the beginning of the season, when I predicted Spurs to finish 7th, people were saying to me, yeah, we'll finish above Chelsea. We're going to finish above Villa. We're going to finish above Newcastle. Now, all of a sudden, it's this. Like, Matt, you've got to stop. How many of our players get into Newcastle's team? You've got to stop. Because at the beginning of the season, if I had said to you, Livramento, Hall, Shah, right? Pope, all of you would have been going, nah, I'm having Vicario, I'm having this, I'm having that, I'm having that. Come on, guys. Come on. Let's not be revisionist here. Look, we've got 2 minutes to go, George. I just want to ask you, give me your predictions for the rest of the season. We're in 4 competitions, as I keep being told. Where are we going to finish in the league and what's going to happen in each cup? And I'm going to clip this and remind you of it every day.
Do you know what? I'll be totally honest and say I don't know. I don't know from any of them. And it's so hard to see the vision of where we will go because, like I said, I genuinely, I'm one of the most optimistic Spurs fans out there a lot of the times. But a lot of these games, the Evertons, the Leicesters, I'm the guy that's, surely we can't lose this. It's one of the worst. There's 7 lots, and then they lose. And then they lose. So they've got to the point where they've defeated me because I can no longer see a win. I can't see good. And even I was one of the people saying, I think we can go win a cup. I think that we could get a point against Liverpool draw the game at Anfield and go into the final. But even when I sit back and look at it, I say, final against Eddie Howe and Newcastle, I don't even fancy that. I think Newcastle and Eddie Howe, especially the fact they've not won something for 60 odd years or whatever, they're going to be more up for it than we probably will. And there's nothing more Spursy than losing to a team that hasn't won a trophy in longer than us. Like that's even more Spursy than us than we can get. So
yeah.
I want to sit there and try to be optimistic. I think, to be honest, the Europa League is the one place where it presents a good opportunity. But even when you look at like Lazio, they're flying right now. They're a good team. Do I fancy us in a one game, a one or two-legged tie against them? No. In a one-game final, potentially. I think we could win a trophy. Do we win a trophy? I'm probably going to say no at this point. I just don't think that what we've seen over the last couple games and what we've seen over the last month gives us any confidence as to what Spurs can be a successful team this year. And then taking it to the league, I think we're probably finishing in around 11th, 12th, maybe 10th if we're lucky. And I saw Ange come out and say, yeah, we're still aiming for top 8, but I think we're 12 points off 8th or something, 13. Like
he wants top 8.
Yeah, he come out and said something like we're aiming for top 8 right now or something.
So we're just the 13 points behind Aston Villa. It's just the 5 wins to 8. Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
We would need the thing is, for us to actually do anything in the league, you need to go on a 6 or 7 games winning run. I don't think Spurs have done that under Ange at all. I don't think we've got a 5 or 6 game winning run built up together. So I don't see it. I don't see it. So it's probably going to be around 12th and likely so. I'll put my hands up and say I was wrong. Ange's probably going to get sacked. He probably will get sacked, and deservedly so. If you finish in the bottom half of the table, I said, to be honest, I said at the start of the season, if anything but 5th is sacking because you've regressed. We were 5th last year. You have to progress every year for me and my eyes. And the only other way that you can progress without being better in league position is winning Europa League or something. Because I don't think League Cup, we've seen with Man United, does not cover it doesn't paper over the cracks for me. I need to see a Europa League or something, a big trophy, something that actually proves some pedigree. And FA Cup, League Cup, it's not enough for me.
I think the only reason League Cup papers over cracks with our fan base is because it's been so bloody long, right? Yeah. Let's be fair. Club like Man United were like, great, you won the FA Cup. You've been shit the first 10 games this season. See you later, mate. Yeah. And that's the difference. Just quickly, George, forgetting Elfsborg tonight, just looking at the games to see where the points will come from. We've got Brentford away. They've got the 3rd best home record in the league. Yeah. Liverpool away in the Cup. Villa away in the FA Cup. United coming to the lane. You know, again in that game that Ruben Amorim's gonna make it really difficult for us with the 5 at the back. And City coming to White Hart Lane, Bournemouth coming to White Hart Lane, Fulham away, Chelsea away, Southampton at home. I'm willing to put my mortgage on that one. I'm willing to put my mortgage on that. But then Wolves away, Forest, Liverpool away, West Ham away, mate. I don't, you said about winning 6 in a row. I can't see where we get 2 in a row. I genuinely don't see 2 wins in a row in this team.
Yeah, we'll probably get 2 wins in a row, but it'll be like a 2 wins in a row and then lose 2 or something like that. I think we're at a position now where every game is a hard game. Like, literally every game you look at and you say, oh, I don't know if we're going to get through that one. So, yeah, it's tough. I don't really know where to count the wins, but we can only hope that in this last 15 games, you're going to see a much better side with some of the players coming back. Because with Romero, with Van de Ven, and some of these players come back, we should be better. But will we? There's no guarantees. Because like I said, at the start of the season, we didn't necessarily start great. A lot of these players were there, and we didn't. The signs were there. We saw the early signs. Some of us ignored it to try and give it more time. But throughout time, we've seen that it's not got any better. So the confidence in us doing and performing and being a big side is not there this season, man.
No, absolutely. Listen, before I say my thank yous, just quickly, we've got a super chat. And yes, absolutely, George, one of my best mods. Yes, we have got a watch along here tonight at 6:15. Everybody does know that I channel my inner John Motson and suddenly think I'm working for Sky Sports. I go very in depth with my commentary. I do enjoy it, though. So join me tonight for what I hope for once is a very straightforward. I just want a 2-0 up at half time, 3-0 full time, straightforward, no controversy, no talking points. We'll see if we get that. Big up to you. Big up to the Sanctuary of 7, who has said, I bet Van de Ven can't wait for Ange to get sacked. Well, do you know what, Sanctuary of 7? First of all, thank you for the super chat. I'd be really interested to see Mickey Van de Ven in a normal back 4, where he's not being asked to play central midfield and cover. It'll be interesting to see. And does that prolong his hamstrings? So, yeah, listen, I completely agree with you. I'm sure he's looking forward to that. guys and girls, here is the link to George's channel. Before we go, for 60 seconds while I say thank you to George, come on, people. One last push. There's 600 of you in here. Surely everybody can just get over there straight away. We've already got him to 1.11K. Let's get that up to 1.13 or 4. Come on, people. Smash that button, please. George, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Really good chat.
Yeah, no, it's been a really good chat. It's been good to come on, you know, really. I always say when we get to speak on panels and stuff, it's so much harder. But when you have a one-to-one chat, you can really dive into the deep depths and really get into a good conversation. It's been a good one, man. It's been a good, thank you for the chat. Everyone's been tuned in. They've been really involved. So big up to the chat. And I hope the likes are above 200 at this point, because we've had like 500-600 people in it for most of the time. Please, people, make sure you smash the like button. It doesn't cost a thing. It doesn't take a second.
We're at 250 likes finally. And by the way, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the show. We are working our way towards 16.5K now. And trust me, it's a lot of work to get there. It's when you wonder why people ask for subs and likes, it's a lot of work. Trust me, it's a lot of work. Guys, girls, let's have a quick look before we go. Let's have a look at Do-Rag Diaries. Yeah, we're up to 1.12. It looks like they're coming in for you. Man. Listen, George, love the show. Thank you very much, everyone. Join me tonight. I'm going to go and relax. I'm doing nothing else today from a YouTube perspective. I hope we'll get in. We'll go in tonight to the game. We're going to cruise this win, surely. And maybe we might see Archie Gray play at central midfield. I doubt it. Take care, everyone. Please like, please subscribe. Levy out, Enoch out, Ange out. But as always, come on, you Spurs.